So I made a big mistake.
Did you not hit record?
Yeah, I hit it just now. But okay, so I like the conversation you're having. Please, please, please don't make me feel bad. We gotta do like another one of these another time.
That is a-okay.
Okay, and I'll study. What I'll do is I'll study the paper that you're talking about. You gotta send that to me though, or give me a link to it. The
The ones on intersectionality.
No, the okay, that you can do, but I'm talking about the Jordan Peterson thesis.
Oof, I might not even have access to that one myself anymore because I graduated. So,
Okay.
but Jordan, I don't feel like talking about Jordan Peter. We don't need to talk about Jordan Peterson. We don't need to. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh, what I was saying. Okay, this is what I was saying. I think before you went. Yeah, Brett Weinstein did the Uni 2020 project where he proposed ranked choice voting, and he sought that as a solution to a lot of the issues that we're having too. And I never, I've hammered it with so many people. Like, what is the problem with ranked choice voting? And like you said, the never works is like, oh, it doesn't work, and then the it's you're selling our state. I was like, what is that? Like, I don't even know what that argument is. Um, but have you heard any good arguments against ranked choice voting?
I mean, not really, but then again, I am a theater kid. Like, I'm sure a poli sci student might have a better devil's advocate position than myself. Like, to me, from the citizenry standpoint, ranked choice voting, I think, is good. I don't see any reason why individuals ranking who they would vote and then getting their second favorite is a bad thing. Like, I don't see a future where that is. I think the only plausible reason why that might be bad, but it's the same reason why democracy might be bad, is that people don't participate or people write in joke answers.
Mm.
That's all I can think of though. But I'm a theater kid, and all I can think of now is a comedy bit where a bunch of people put Kanye as their second favorite, and then Kanye's the president.
Well, I mean, hey, people voted for people did put Kanye in,
I
um,
I
and that
think
was
they.
without the ranked choice voting. That's
I
without
know that's the
the.
only thing that worries me, man. Like
I
that
mean,
that
and Donald Trump was in there, so like, what do you mean? Donald Trump was put in there,
I know that's the worst part.
and that's without ranked choice voting. So,
Oh, it's so saddening, so deeply saddening. I think, yeah, I'm curious. I think America stands, in my opinion, stands the most to gain from ranked choice voting. But I think also, like, America's current political system with the current two-party system, or like the way that everything plays out, at least feeling like a two-party system. Like, I'm curious. I'm just curious about America right now. I feel like America's in a very interesting position because they're coming out of a rather tumultuous last four years with a hilariously bad president, in my opinion, as a Canadian. And I think that they're go moving that moving forward, there's a chance now for some serious progress. However, I do think that there needs to be some sweeping democratic reform to ensure that a second Trump does not happen, because that was shockingly terrifying to
let
and
let me
I,
let me ask you this: do you think that the Democratic Party kind of screwing over Bernie Sanders is what helped create Trump with Hillary,
ooh,
well, with Hillary Clinton?
that is a question I'm woefully underqualified to answer.
Because like,
Where
would Bernie have been the ticket if the party themselves didn't bolster Hillary and kind of undercut the public that would have voted for Bernie? Because there's a lot of people who voted for Bernie in the primaries, and then once Hillary became the candidate, went over to Trump.
if you got people like that, you got a bigger issue on your hands. You got
Right,
people who don't
populism.
know.
I
Yeah,
think populism is like kind of like the issue there, and
y-
so the way to stop another Trump is to address the populism issue. Um,
yeah. that is one potential way to stop another Trump. I think, like, but naturally, how the question then becomes, how do you stop populism, right?
I think the middle class is getting screwed over too much. The working
I
class, I
think,
should say. The working class, I should say, more
well,
specifically.
I think, yeah, I can agree on that front. I think what one thing that we're also seeing is, are you familiar with the elephant graph of economic growth in the past few years, since like the
Mm-mm.
70s? So basically, it's a graph that ranks economic growth in since I can't remember the starting year, but basically it shows that that part of what creates populism is there's a bunch of people who are extremely not wealthy, got some money, right? They got a little bit of economic growth. Um, then there's a whole section in the middle, like starting at poverty, like so people who are still also incredibly poor,
Yeah.
all the way till you get to the top 1% who experience no economic growth. And then that top like 80 to 90% experience massive economic growth. Like, you have an issue there where we're seeing economic principles of trickle down economics, tax cuts to the rich, that has not worked.
Mm.
Um, and there's an issue. There's definitely an issue in a lot of economies of like, especially of big companies influence elections through donations and through lobbying, and as a result, third parties, these people who are elected are disincentivized to put in uh, reform that helps uh, that helps the people that are most affected by more predatory legislation and taxes. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And the election cycle is like super duper long. I think that's an issue, and then the amount of money that goes into it as well.
yeah, the amount of money in the American elections, the length of the American election cycle is very, it's very tiring, even watching it, because I remember I was in my last year of high school. the the Trump election cycle in 2016 was like just starting, so I was like, it was like 2015, I think. No, it was 2016. It was just happening. I remember those last few months. I was like, damn, this is taking a while. That was like the first real time where I was like, where like, as in, I was like vaguely adult. Like, I at least couldn't like, I was like, is this really how long they've always been? Turns out, yeah, they just take America election takes a while, because Canadian elections are like a year, which in my opinion makes sense. You're
Yeah.
gonna vote that year. You've had a chance to look back on the past few years. I don't think 2 years is enough for anything to get done politically.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, I'm with you there.
hmm.
It's funny that you were into ranked choice voting. When you said that, I was like, freaking love that. Yeah. So, um, so you saw the? Did you watch any of my other videos, by the way? Did you watch
Uh,
your?
I saw that you debate people. I saw the term liberals ain't gonna handle this.
My clickbait title.
Whenever I see that, I'm like, come on, man. What's
I
this
got
for?
yeah.
Uh, that's my thing. Oh, I was very curious with your response video to the initial comment. I was curious as to why you don't like it when other people ask you to educate yourself on certain issues. Personally,
Wait, let me look at which one you're referring to.
the one where you responded to my comment, the first one.
I actually still don't remember. Let
Uh,
me see. Uh, oh, they replied. Oh, maneuvers that people do when I'm trying to challenge them. Oh, okay. So yeah, yeah. So I don't object to people saying that I need to educate myself. What I object to is so like I'm asking you, um, so like let's say we talked about polyamory earlier, right? And my position is polyamory is self-defeating, right? And it doesn't accomplish. Let's say that was my position, and it doesn't make
Hmm.
bring happiness. And you say polyamory does bring happiness, and I go, how does polyamory bring happiness? And you say, go educate yourself. And then I'm thinking like, the reason why I cannot educate myself that polyamory brings happiness is because I have the position that polyamory doesn't bring happiness. And so what it's saying is that it's sending me off to educate myself until I come back with the same conclusion. It's very much akin to me like when Mormons go, we have the true church, and then you go like, how do I know? They say, well, go pray about it. And the way you know whether you got the right answer, whether the Mormon church is true church, if God comes and tells you in your prayer that the Mormon church is right, and they go like, yeah, look, you heard from God.
I can kind of see where you're coming from. Uh, I I I understand like it would be incredibly frustrating if the issue that if like you were having you genuine misunderstanding on an issue or a topic and then someone just goes like figure it out yourself.
Yeah,
um I think part of the issue then becomes like to what extent do like I'm a comedian, right? Where why is it my job to inform people of things? Like, no, I am not beholden to the truth. Right now, I'm speaking very candidly about these issues because you were very nice with reaching out. But I'm not beholden to necessarily tell people and inform people about what I know. I don't need to. I'm
yeah,
beholden to make the funnies. So in a way, I'm kind of like I'm like I think a lot to for a lot of people, sometimes the educate yourself argument comes out when to some people the answer is very obvious. Like if you ask a physicist, like and to them it's trivial almost. It's like the first step to a lot of people sometimes. Like in my limited journey with learning about gender studies and intersectionality, first thing we learned was about like these issues that people face on a daily basis and how race is one of the largest factors and like gender and sex is one of the next largest and economic prince and then the economy is the next, and like we learned about that stuff. Like that's part of what makes it up. Is it like is it's like if this is step one and you've already formed an opinion about this thing yet you haven't reached step one, is it my job then to go and inform you of step
yeah.
one? I guess that's the question.
I guess the what's at underlying that position is the assumption that you're correct, right? And then also the reason why I don't recognize that you're correct is because I haven't educated myself. Now, in order for me to follow what you're saying, I have to take to somewhat degree like, oh, I recognize that I'm uneducated, and perhaps if I did educate myself, I would say that you're right.
Hmm.
Hey, guess what I did? I forgot to hit the fucking record button. The whole time? Yeah, until just recently. Oh, no. I can't. So we only got like half of whatever, but he said he'll do another one with me. And we got on record. He said he'll do another one. I got that.
Potentially.
Um, I know. I was like, whatever. But what was I saying? Oh, so the underlying idea is that you're correct, and then if I was educated, then I would realize that you're correct, right? And so the problem with that is I've done that before, and then when I come back, the other person says, "Oh, well, you still need to educate yourself further, because basically underlying that they're right, and what they'll know that I've educated myself when I finally come back and be like, you know what, you were right all along." And I'm thinking like, that's only assuming that the person's right. And is this person going to perpetually send me back? Oh, you disagree with me? Get educated. And I go get some more information. Oh, yeah, obviously you're wrong. Get educated. And then it's like this. I've had it to where I've done that at churches when I first got involved in Christianity. Pastors would tell me, oh, I need to read the Bible or like study to look for the answer. And then if I still disagree with them, they say, oh, you need to study more. And then eventually I just like left that church because nothing, he couldn't reconcile any of my questions.
I guess part of the there's a difference between religion and then the facts around society at large. Like like there's a like with religion, there's so much of it is based off of faith. like so much of it is based off of this idea of like it must be true, right? Um, but with society and those things, there are very tangible and things that you can look into. Like imagine if I had the stance gravity doesn't exist. Like, and then all of a sudden I'm jumping into a conversation about space flight. Might you then suggest that I go educate myself on gravity before jumping into the conversation?
Um, I don't think I would ever do that because I would want to give them some type of guide to where they can go and find out. So I wouldn't just say go. I don't think I would ever just say go educate yourself because that's too vague. It's like um it's implying that the person doesn't want to educate themselves without giving them a good direction or some training wheels to do so.
I think part of it comes down to like if they were interested in learning more, they would have already done a certain degree of groundwork. Like
Yeah,
like the space flight example, I think is a pretty like is a strange example. It's not a great analogy, but I do think that that to an extent, when you're entering conversations about some of this stuff, there is an expectation of level to like how you'd enter these conversations in order to provide a sort of um meaningful ideas for this. I have a theater and drama studies degree. That is my specialization. So I like when I go and have discussions about Shakespeare, for example, like some rando can certainly come up to me with their ideas about Shakespeare. But if they go and tell me something completely wrong, I'm going to go and they go, he didn't actually write an iambic pentameter, which is how Shakespeare wrote. I'm going to go, no, no, no. Like, you need to go learn first because he did. Or like something along those lines. Like a lot of the time, sometimes when I see this argument laid out, at least I see it off the educate yourself argument is often placed against things that are pretty easy, at least from my perspective, to understand. So maybe part of the issue comes from is like these people don't necessarily understand where the educate yourself argument is coming from to them because
yeah.
they aren't part of that.
The thing is, okay, so it carries with it not only that I'm uneducated, but anyone who doesn't agree with you is uneducated. So, like for example, in this instance, I need to educate myself in intersectionality. No matter what, at the end of the day, um, if the way you know that I'm not educated is because I don't agree with you on intersectionality, that means that every person on the earth who comes to a different conclusion with you is simply because they're uneducated. And I'm
I
like, that's what, go ahead.
I think that's a slippery slope argument right there. Like not every single person who disagrees with me, oh almighty offbeat outlaw on the ranking of prejudice. Like people, there is disagreement in the arguments that I laid out. I even stated that there's contention on the order of these things. But then to suggest that no one can answer this, I'm like, to me, I'm like,
Oh yeah, yeah. That was the clickbaity part. That was the clickbaity part that no one can answer this.
yeah,
Um,
and so naturally, like, I'm going, okay, well, that's part of the thing. No one can answer these questions. Here you go. Here's your answer. And then I get berated in the comment section from people going, Jordan Peterson's a lot smarter than you. He knows things.
no,
It's like,
oh, I don't know about those guys. I the part that was hard, I really literally did not see your answer in the comment section, but that's why I said I don't like comment sections because they reorder them shits. Like they fucking, you can never figure out like who's responding to what. And the longer the thread comes and the more people in the thread, it's like hard for me
that's
to
fair.
figure it out. Like I really hate the comment section and how they did. Have you noticed that they reorder the comments in there? Like
Yeah,
sometimes they
they
go
do
up.
sometimes. Sometimes they'll delete comments altogether.
Yeah.
They won't just get sent to the server. I so I think then that we got a situation of TikTok
Yeah,
now
yeah, 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 yes.
getting in the way of the answer.
Yeah, because
Um,
I tried to read through it, but like in that it has to be like at least 125 or more even.
oh, I argued day and night. I was having so much fun.
Yeah,
I
like
really
is
I
it
got some good zingers in there too. Man, I should have. I did write them down, but I wish I wrote them down on my notebook. I'm funny when I'm at 2 a.m. man.
Yeah, the one I see right here has 165 in that thread alone. Not, I don't know if you went into any other threads, but
I just
yeah,
went into that one.
okay.
That's already enough for me.
Yeah, 165, and like basically as I'm scrolling through here, I can read it and it doesn't read in chronological order. Sometimes
Uh,
it will, but sometimes it won't. And that's why like I was like I read some of your stuff, but then I couldn't find what I was looking for. And that's and so there's layers of things. For one, I did the clickbait where I really didn't mean that liberals can answer it. You went and answered it, but TikTok reordered your shit or it got buried because too many people in the thread for TikTok for whatever reason. And I went and looked into it and I didn't see it. So my part of my history of communicating with people on TikTok is they say they said the answer in the comments, and so many people do that, and then I end up spending so much fucking time looking through the comments to try to find it, like that one. And that's why I did the reply at you, so I can have my own separate thing, so that you can finally like say what your
mhm.
answer was. And when you did, I was like, oh shit, he actually did say, this thing. And that's why I was like, okay, so we can have an actual deep discussion on it. But when it was in there, I couldn't find it, so I separated it and like called it out. And then you actually put like long shit in there, like, oh, he actually did do an answer, but I still haven't seen the where that answer at all was in the original thread. But I'm not saying you didn't do it, but it's like
Yeah.
fucking
I think TikTok may not have been sent to the server or
right.
something. I've had situations where my messages just don't, even on my own videos. I'll post a comment, and then it just like it won't get like, and it's on my own videos, so my fans are gonna like my comment from my own videos. It'll get no likes because it's not there.
Yeah,
It's not visible. So I think that probably happened,
yeah,
or it just got buried by the onslaught of people.
yeah, yeah. That's so. I think that's what happened, and then um, I get what you're saying. Like, and I was on the side because I was on the side of that it can't be done. Um, not from a uh like a scholarly standpoint. Like I've looked at the journals and articles, but more of like I've never seen anyone cook like the way you laid out earlier, where you were like, oh, in America, racism is the highest rank of the intersectionality points. No one has ever said that to me, unless they were like black or a person of color, right?
Mhm.
And then if they're black and a woman, I say which one ranks above. They'd have no answer for that, right? So the only people that I've ever heard give any type of real ranking will do so in a very self-serving way. And I was like, well, this is useless because it's it's essentially people vying for power when they're being given the scraps. Like, so to me, it was like, here's the scraps of some, like trying to give you something to pat yourself on the back for that you have as far as victimhood. And I felt like it was like a scam. Like I was trading in my actual own autonomy to get a pat on the back for something that's basically arbitrary.
I think then something that might be worth considering is like, who are these people that you were talking to? Let's look at who these individuals were. Like, were these people who were qualified for these issues, or were they just civilians like myself?
They were civilians.
Yeah, I think something to consider is profession, like people who are making decisions around these issues. Like, they have rankings and they have these, and they're looking into this, and they won't be self-serving about them as either. Like, they have to look at them objectively,
Yeah.
and I think that that's something to look at as well. Like, even myself, like I've given a ranking, it could very easily be wrong. And if it's wrong, like this is something that I've seen and read about and I've heard about. This stuff changes with time, with location, with demographic. And I think it's just a matter of like of you it people are going to have different opinions on these issues as well. Like, I don't think it's necessarily wrong for them to have a differing opinion. Like, for instance, I part of the reason why my opinion is the way it is I'm very removed from this oppression. I am a white straight male. I'm not facing this oppression. It's not that like my opinion is objectively better. It's just I have no personal horse in the fight. So my own when I look at this stuff, I've got to go, okay, I have no idea. Let me go look in, let me read into it, and then I go, oh, okay, this is what some people seem to be saying, right? Whereas like you can't discredit a woman's experience with oppression. That's her experience. That's her first-hand experience with being oppressed in the workplace or wherever it might be. So like it's not a matter of her own bias. It's a matter of her going like I've got to be one of many. And I don't think it's wrong to say that their oppression is grand as well. There are issues that do need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Um, and potentially like the follow-up point. I think a culminating point is what is the purpose of ranking them anyway? I think this is more what good old JP was trying to get at, but doing so in a very non-instructive way. Was the purpose to ranking them amongst civilians isn't useful. I don't think. I think the purpose to ranking them is for politicians and lawmakers to look at, and for people who can actually affect change greatly.
Dude,
You know,
I like that perspective, but the thing that I feel like is wrong with it is people are taking it and the public, like in the regular civilians, and attaching their morality, ethical system, and virtues and vices to it. So it's becoming like a religious substrate for people.
I mean, there's fewer people like that than I think either of you realize than either of us realize. To be honest, like there's a lot of them online because we like this is an algorithm thing. Like I see that you see people all the time on TikTok. There's a lot of people online with with who potentially have wrong or very aggressive opinions.
Mm,
Like I see people mostly back when during the political cycle, I saw a lot of people on the right wing with very very bad political takes,
mm, yeah,
you know? And it's not like every person who is a right wing thinker is stupid. It's not true. That's
right.
just not true. I disagree with them, but it's not true. But a lot of the people that you see have terrible takes because it's the most aggressive. It's the one that gets the most engagement. Therefore, it's the one that TikTok's going to push.
Mm,
And it's also going to be the most radical. And it's also going to be the most radicalizing as well. So people are going to become radicalized through these apps, and therefore they're going to have less and less informed takes. I can't even say that I haven't been radicalized in any way by these apps because I've used it,
yeah.
and neither can you. If you use the app, you have been radicalized to an extent, but via using any form of internet service that has an algorithm involved.
What was the reason that you stopped? Because I saw a thing that said you like, because you said you don't
So,
do videos anymore. What happened? What made you stop doing TikTok?
YouTube's better. I like it more.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Oh, you already got the following, so like you can retire with your
Yeah, like
jersey at this point.
TikTok's great for growth. TikTok is an excellent platform for growth. Um, I'd say it's probably the best platform currently for growing an audience. However, it is the worst platform for a creator to make their home.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Um, like every single I think a good life cycle for a creator is you can look at a good way to judge a platform is by their largest creators. If we look at the largest creators on TikTok, Charlie D'Amelio,
Mm,
she's not really on here anymore. she's she's on other platforms. She's on YouTube. She's got a TV show. She's in
mm,
adverts. She's a movie star. Um, Largest creator on YouTube, PewDiePie, still on YouTube. If we
yeah.
look at Addison Rae on TikTok, not really here anymore. She's hanging out with the Kardashians. She's got her own TV show. She's not really. She makes a dance video like once a week. Not really
Huh.
on TikTok anymore. She's got her own stuff going on in Hollywood now. She's in movies. Once again, go to YouTube. Corpse Husband, like maybe he's on Twitch, but he's also on YouTube. Or like, now we go on like you see on TikTok a trend of creators getting big and then leaving and doing their other projects, which is what I think the app is perfect
Basically
for.
for yeah, yeah. No, no.
Maybe not intentionally, but yeah, because that's
Do
also a sign of a dying platform.
yeah. Do you think that Twitch is better than YouTube, or YouTube better than Twitch, or what are your opinions on that?
Okay, do you think TV's better than movies?
I think TV's better than movies.
I don't have an opinion on either because I don't think they're comparable. I
I think
enjoy TV more than I enjoy movies, but is it better?
okay, that yeah, like, objectively better, but I enjoy TV more than movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'd say personally for my content, YouTube is better. But but for my other form of content that I do, I think Twitch might be better for that specific type of content. In the same vein, the type of content I do on TikTok does not work on YouTube, so it's perfect for TikTok. What you do is built by your medium, right?
yes.
So like I can't necessarily say whether or not it's better or worse, you know?
Hmm. No, because I haven't gotten to Twitch yet, but my friend told me I should try it out because he thinks that what I do would possibly work well on that.
Potentially. It's all about what you want to do. Like what this is what I am qualified to talk about. Social
Okay.
media and content. This is my bread and butter. Political stuff I just make fun of. That is my stance. But
Yeah.
what type of content do you want to make?
I honestly do want to make content where people from sides that don't often talk to each other come together and have a like high level conversation to show that these type of things can happen. So it's kind of like a middle ground, like um, people from disparate views sitting down at the table together, I guess you could kind of say.
I guess then I guess a question I should ask you is do you think that's useful nowadays?
Do I think that sitting
Yeah.
people from polarized places?
Making content about people from polarized views talking to each other.
Yeah, I think it's good to have that to where people can see that it can occur.
Mm-hmm. My question, I'm thinking then of the Joe Rogan experience. He often would do this, and even he, looking back on it, he doesn't even agree with that anymore because he feels like it platforms ideas that aren't necessarily constructive. Because there's a lot of there's a lot of people out there uh like people like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and those lot who even like I strongly disagree with them, but even talking about them produces their narrative. Me engaging with that video and making a comment informs Jordan Peterson's narrative. It continues his narrative, his fame, his myth. So what you're then doing is you are platforming people who you might not agree with, and therefore you are platforming ideas that are not your own. And there is a lot of discussion right now about whether or not this is the way to go. So I think I'm just curious about I'm not necessarily saying that it's wrong because I don't know. I'm just saying like I think it's a form of content. It's a structure that requires more thought than I think people have initially gave it. Because I also initially wanted to do the same thing that you did, but specifically that you're currently trying to do. But I wanted to do it with comedians of different views. But I started looking into it, and I was like, you know, if I give these people a platform, even if I school them, absolutely wipe the floor with them in a debate or discussion or whatever, I'm still platforming them and giving them a place, and is that constructive?
I don't. Uh, I guess I don't feel like, and these are people who I disagree with necessarily. Like I don't go. I don't. I'm not going to bring people on to school them. I'm doing it to. I feel like the cross examination itself is illuminating. Um, so I guess what I want to do is bring them to the edge of their comfort zone, which is typically how the other side has a point, and do that with both of them. It's like, oh, say so. Like a lot of times they're it's very hard to get them to admit that the other side has a point, and I want to try to drive the conversation towards that if possible.
I think whenever I see an argument currently for centrism, it's always like this is my own personal bias showing. But whenever I see it, it's always like left-leaning person, that's always like the right-leaning person's like, I guess healthcare for all isn't a bad thing. And then you're gonna make the left person admit that Nazism and fascism might not be might be decent. Like that's not good at all. Like I think right now we're in a very radicalized political climate. I don't like is what you're suggesting a method for de-radicalization? Maybe, but it also might not be. It might be a method for further radicalization, I guess,
Wait,
is
do
a
you
potential angle.
do you think that both poles, the left and the right, are necessary?
Both poles? Well,
Like, do you think that it's necessary for us to perpetually have a left and right?
I don't think you can ever have anything. I'm not sure if you can have anything but I also would like to state that I don't think America is not a very good example of a left wing and a right wing. America is a great example of a center and a right wing. America doesn't really have a very substantiated left wing. You have Bernie, but he dejectedly decides that he's going to run for the Democrats. Democrats are quite central.
Yeah. So, but basically, you have a underlying philosophy of a balance between the two. That there's a usefulness of each because they can balance each other out.
Depends. It depends on the situation. Uh, like like is capitalism the worst economic system we've ever come up with? No, it was incredibly useful with getting people out of the industrial era and getting people into and creating developed nations and creating great economic success in countries that needed it. However, we are moving into a point where capitalism is going to ruin us. It's going to sow the seeds of our own destruction if we continue to let it go unregulated. Um, like so, it's like I think it's like you gotta look at the times and you gotta see what the best choice is. I think there are I think you can say that there are objectively better choices for better times.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so this goes back to kind of like how I view Jordan Peterson, and what I like about it is he does say that there's a necessary aspect to each of them, and he says like the progressive and conservative. So it's like there are times when you should conserve the system as it exists, and there's some times where the system needs to change. And so the progressives are good at pointing out when the system needs to be changed, and the conservative is good at pointing out when the system needs to be kept the same. And if both sides talked where they disagree, perhaps it will illuminate the issues of why they disagree. Like, because both are needed. Sometimes you have to keep things the way they are, sometimes you have to change them. And that's what I think the usefulness of each one is.
I think my thinking then is in current climate, I think a lot of things need to change. I think looking back on how the pandemic's gone around the world, I think there's a lot of views that need changing. So in the current political and economic and whatever climate, global freaking climate change, um, do we need people who want things to stay as they are, maintain course? Are those people necessary? I'm like, and this is very much my own opinion. I'm struggling to see where it is where this is where maintaining our current system is going to be the best choice. We need to change a lot of things. We're in an era of misinformation where people debate about facts.
Mm-hmm.
We are in an era where people don't believe vaccines are useful. We are in an era where people don't believe in medicine. We're in an era where people don't believe in science. Flat earthers exist. Like we are in a very, very, very bad spot.
I guess some of the things that you're listing, like those are accidents of the conservative party, but I don't see how they derive from conservatism itself. So I don't see like what is there, how does believing in a flat Earth actually connect to conservatism? What are they trying to conserve?
I'm connecting that to misinformation.
Mm.
And currently, the party that has been most linked to misinformation is Donald Trump, considering there was a study conducted in about September of 2020 where they discovered that about 30% of all misinformation related to vaccines and COVID came directly from the Twitter of Donald J. Trump or his mouth.
Yeah, so like those are the what do you call it? Like the maladies of the conservative party, but conservatism as a philosophy, like that we should conserve certain things, I say is true. But a lot of things I said, like there are okay, so one thing that I think should be conserved is to a large degree the family unit. I do think that polyamory is bad for society, at least right now. Um, I
I
do.
strongly disagree.
I know you do. I know you do. But I'm saying like those are one of the things that I would say that needs to be conserved. Like the flat Earth. I've never heard someone like the every. It's weird because the flat earthers seem to be trying to do that from the Bible. But even that is like conserving something. I don't know what they're trying to conserve because the Bible doesn't actually say that. So it's like,
They're conserving their own point of view.
yeah, yeah. So like that's not the usefulness of conservatism. Conservatism is useful to conserving hard fought battles. So like if it took us a lot to get somewhere, like to figure this out, and a lot of people died along the way, and now we don't have to face that anymore. Like those aspects to where, we had hard fought battles to where we finally got rid of slavery, right? So we don't want to be like progressive and start thinking differently on that because that was like a hard fought battle.
Well, I don't think any progressive is like, let's go back to
I
slavery.
know, but that was but that's what I'm saying. That this is so we don't need to be progressive philosophically on that. We need to be conservative on that. That's the way I view it philosophically. And
I mean I mean like sure, like I can agree on like yeah, like obviously some things don't need to change. Sure, we don't need let's not go back to slavery. Wow.
sure.
Like no kidding. Wow, I'm going to say something radical here. Let's not do this. But I think but like I'm also looking at what progressives are currently wanting and what people who are democratic currently want, and it's only being met with opposition, and it's making everything difficult. I'm not saying that we don't need them entirely, but I am suggesting that currently their existence is very much annoying. Like like with climate change, didn't Ted Cruz himself say he'll believe it when Texas freezes over? Like we're there. There we go, Ted. Where are you? I like we're at a point where well, we're running out of time
Have you ever heard of Jonathan Haidt?
potentially.
Jonathan Haidt, The Righteous Mind, or what's the other one? The Righteous Mind and whatever. What's the other one he's got?
Jonathan Haidt, HADT,
Yeah,
HIDT.
yeah. He has The Righteous Mind and The Coddling of the American Mind. Those are like his top ones. But I love The Righteous Mind because it explains. Okay, so this is like my theory. I get my stuff from this.
Mm-hmm.
He's liberal too, by the way, and so he puts the political spectrum on 5 or 6 personality traits perspective. So what makes someone liberal is not so much what the party says, or really the substrate of their political ideas, but it's actually a personality type. There's 5 or 6 sacred values that each personality circles around, and those are the things that they put as valuable above others. So it would be like harm care. The left is it puts harm care as their sacred value, like high above other things, where the right is more concerned with issues of purity, authority, sanctity, and stuff like that. So like listening to your parents, obey authorities, this type of thing, the good old boys situation, that like looking to the old system, that type of authority thing is more of a right concern, or even purity um, is more of a right concern for the most part. The left is more concerned with purity in regards to food to a certain degree, like the whole vegan vegetarian, that the diet part, and the right tends to be like more people who like are really fatty type of, fatty foods and unhealthy stuff, and but they're pure as far as like racial purity, or perhaps like more onto sexual purity even, right? And those are the sacred values that like where the two types land in different spots. That's kind of like his theory.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and I'll have to definitely look into it because I did not heard of this boy before.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
No, it's really like his stuff. Like, so I am a Jordan Peterson fan, but I don't like everything Jordan Peterson. Like this guy is better on a lot of political stuff than Jordan Peterson, like by far.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my big problem with JP with Jordan Peterson. It's like
yeah.
you picked the worst guy. I just
Wait, hey, okay, wait a minute. Let me ask you this: have you seen his biblical series?
is biblical.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I don't. Let me tell you my stance on Christianity. This is very much just my stance. I would like to state that. Um, I think uh, currently church as it is very inflated. And the institution of the church is upsetting to me.
Mm,
And like, there's a Bible verse that says all you need for church is people who follow me, and I'm like, okay, you don't need the buildings. Take it down. Like we're like not take it down. I understand their purpose. I'm not
yeah.
about like getting rid of them, but the institution of like tax breaks for them, televangelists and all that.
Hmm.
And as a result, I typically, like, when I do decide to when I do look into the Bible more, I don't like listening to people like Jordan Peterson on those things, and I won't seek out that information
Mm,
because it's to me, I see currently the way it is a lot of that stuff is a lot of that stuff is quite discriminatory and rooted in elitism, which I really don't like. Like like some of the stuff is like I see a lot of the times when people discriminate based on these the way how relationships should work, specifically regarding gay people. They'll cite the Bible, and I'm like, well,
mm,
that's not what it's about at all. You missed the point. More importantly, that text was only added in 1940s, in like the 1940s. So like let's not pretend for a moment that that's what God wrote. People have tampered with the Bible. Let's not pretend that it hasn't been tampered with, because if you do that, then you're pushing a message that God didn't intend. Like it's people will use religion, a religion that's supposed to be about love and supposed to be about acceptance of others. They'll use it instead to prejudice and judge others, which is
yeah.
which is insane to me. And so I see people like good old JP spouting a message I don't agree with, um, particularly regarding like how he views, especially around how he views trans people. And why should I listen to what he says if he's not willing, if especially regarding the Bible, if he's not willing to love everybody regardless of their choices, then he is, in my opinion, not a good follower of the faith. The only good follower of the faith is my grandmother. I'll stand by that.
Your grandma's the only good father. Okay.
Yes, it's my that's just me though.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that he's kind of poisoned the well with the other things. I don't think that Jordan Peterson is against trans. That's a different discussion. I don't think he's against trans people. Um,
Why did he want to hold a rally in University of Toronto where he was going to say bad things about trans people? Then
I think he was going against compelled speech. Like I don't think that he was going against trans people.
no,
Um,
I'm
I I really don't. I don't. But okay, this is the reason I think as far as the video, the biblical series is like the reason why I like I said, it was one of the best combinations of science and religion that I've seen in a while. The conversation between religion and science has been antagonistic and shallow for a while. He's one of the first people to make the step to combine the two. in a way that, I mean, it's the most popular biblical series on all of YouTube. There's nobody who's going through the Bible who has more views than him, and it's by far. Like he's got like 7 million views on an hour, 2 hour, 2.5 hour long lecture with just him speaking about the Bible.
Hmm.
And there's something to be said about that, because there's something that he is giving people in that they are not finding in the church. And I feel like it's a authentic attempting to approach it in a meaningful way type of Bible
Hmm.
approach. Um, Not trying to preach, but trying to work through it and process how it fits together. And his views are not for, like, he consulted people who are legit people in order to get some of his views.
Hmm.
Which maybe you could go into those people deeper, but I'm a part of a Discord with this one guy who is man, that dude, he's the man, Paul Vanderklay. But he like does commentary on Peterson's like biblical series and stuff like that. But I guess I would say, like, man, it's unfortunate that you uh won't give him a chance on the biblical series, because I think that's his best work out of anything. Like, if if I were to go to somewhere politics, it would be Jonathan Haidt. If I go somewhere on science and biology and the stuff
Hmm.
like that, it'll be Brett Weinstein. If I want to go to someone that combines religion, evolutionary biology, and religion, then it will be Jordan Peterson. Like, that's his best
Hmm.
stuff to me. Like the other stuff, it's I don't know enough to say on a lot of it how well he is, but like, to me, his his most popular thing is the biblical series.
Hmm.
I
I think to me, I just look at what he's at what at his stances on things, and I don't think it's a situation of a poisoned well, because it's not like someone else influenced my decisions on this man by saying, "Oh, he's a terrible person." First, he just did it on national news. He did it in front of people, and he was a special. Just looking at this article now from BBC News World Canada. He expressed frustration with using gender progressive pronouns like they, z or zer. And as a student of language, theater being and plays being language, I can safely say that if he has an issue with that, an issue with changing the way he addresses people for the sake of just making them feel accepted, why on earth should I take his views on anything else seriously?
Yeah,
Like
the sticking.
it's not to say that people with different opinions don't have anything value to say. But if this person can't even respect individuals who's different from him, why should I listen to him?
I guess my sticking point with that is, do you have, like, I have never heard of an example of that conflict actually occurring. So like, there hasn't been a trans person that said to call me this pronoun, and he hasn't done it.
Well, here let me get these quotes.
Like, I've never heard of an instance where that happened, where someone said refer to me as they, and he didn't do it.
Uh, so here's what Jordan Peterson says. So he thinks this is authoritarian. I've studied authoritarianism for a long time, for 40 years, and they're started by people's attempts to control the ideological and linguistic territory. There's no way I'm going to use words made up by people who are doing that. Not a chance.
I I agree that what he said sounds like what you are afraid of, but it is it not peculiar to you that there's no instance of him actually doing that?
So if I said something exquisitely racist, then I never call someone the N word. Am I
The
racist or not?
it depends on what you would consider racist. Because, like, okay, so like, I put a post up there about the controversy around the term niggardly. Did you see that one?
I did.
Yeah, so like, somebody could say somebody's racist because they use that term. Like, now, Is
That
somebody?
is not what we're discussing. That's a scarecrow argument you've put up here. We're talking about the specific quote where Jordan Peterson says that he's not going to use those words because he thinks using the word they when referring to an individual is authoritarian. That's a very like we can say like, oh well, he's never done it, but I'm
Yeah.
like, but I'm also, but what value does that bring? He said this,
He
you
also
know?
said, but he okay. So I guess this is a better counter argument to that. He also I can pull up a quote and show you that he said that if somebody were to ask him to call him by the pronoun, he would. Like I actually I can pull up a video of him saying that if somebody trans asked him to call him by the pronoun,
Well,
was asked to call. Like I've seen videos of that, and so like what you have is a contradiction. Um, man, I have to look at because it's all saying that he says. Yeah, I wish I freaking had that up. I don't know. Trying to find the video.
okay, so here's another thing that he says. If the standard transsexual person wants to be regarded as he or she, my sense is I'll address you according to the part that you appear to be playing, he said. Now, this completely disregards they. He is once again conforming to the idea that there is a gender binary. When when experts will all agree that gender is spectrumed, you know? But he argues terms like gender identity and gender expression are too broad, are the propositions of radical social constructionists are being used to bully opponents into submissions. And gender is a socially constructed idea. It is. Sex, as in penis and vagina, that's the sex of people, is not even a binary. Gender is an expression of somebody, not necessarily the roles that they might have to play. Another thing he follows this up with, there's only two alternatives to that, referring to the previous stuff. One is silent slavery with all the repression and resentment that will generate, and the other is outright conflict. And then he puts up a separate scarecrow argument. Free speech is not just a value, it's a foundation of Western civilization.
Read that last part again. Sorry.
So he says one is silence. There's only two alternatives to that. One is silent slavery with all the repression and resentment that will generate, and the other is outright conflict. And then he follows this up with free speech is not just another value, it's the foundation of Western civilization. However, this free speech argument is not brought up at all in this. He's not asking people to have respect for another is not an argument against free speech. That this free speech argument is a scarecrow argument. It is a talking point that gets brought up.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I guess like so the reason I brought up the point about him saying that he would say it to somebody if they asked him personally is because it seems to be the free speech aspect is against the people in authority telling him what he should say versus a personal relationship thing. So like he's sticking to these people are tyrannical because these are authorities telling me what to say, but not a person that I have a personal relationship with. I think that's what he's more like. From what I've seen, that's the only way I can reconcile him saying that he would call a transgender by whatever they prefer pronoun.
that's a lot of mental gymnastics for someone to just like legislating decency. Like, is that really an issue? Is that really the top of his mind when it comes to freedom of speech? Is that really the most pressing issue? The most pressing thing that is currently attacking our freedom of speech is legislating that people should be decent to one another.
Um,
And it's not even like, and here's
I
the thing
don't,
as
I
well.
don't, I don't think we should. No, I kind of don't want. I don't think we should legislate that people should be quote unquote decent to each other.
Okay,
Um,
so we should probably get rid of the rules that prevent us from killing each other too. Then when we're at it.
well, if you want to put decency in the spectrum of like murder, and then like me calling you the right pronoun, like if all of that is wrapped up in decency, then like the idea is that you're smuggling in concepts that I don't. So like the and I have to say yes or no to decency. So like I have to take all this that people can kill each other or not kill each other, and the pronouns those are bundled up together. And if I say no to like legislating the pronouns, then I might as well like just say that everybody can kill each other. That's like packaging these things together in the form of decency. And I'm like, okay, so I mean, I understand the argument if you force those to be packaged together, but what if I don't package them together?
Well, having known people who are transgender and have pronouns that are non-traditional, um, like to them, that's incredibly freaking rude and insensitive and harmful to them. You
And
know,
I
and I
don't think you should have legislation that's saying people can't be rude. I don't think you should have legislation saying that you can't call me the N word. I don't think that is should be legislated.
I think that's hate speech, isn't it?
Yeah, but even if it is legislated, so I'm saying that I personally do not give a fuck whether there's legislation to back up that somebody calls me the N word. So
All right. Well,
regardless of
that's
whether the society says so or not, so you're asking me what I would have, right?
okay.
And
Okay.
I would have free reign on people saying the N word or labeling anyone with any other words they do. I didn't say that they shouldn't have any repercussions or there shouldn't be a punishment for that, but whether it's legislated is a different thing.
Wait. So you're pro punishing people for saying bad things, right? Is that what
Right.
you just said?
Hmm.
How's that punishment going to be orchestrated?
It'll be like a punch in the face or something like that.
Well, that's a whole other mess of legal issues.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that I have the resolution for everything legally, but to me, um, I have a tendency to not want everything to be resolved by law,
Well,
especially in
and
an overly litigious society that we have today. It's like,
well, I think what we have here then, when we're looking at JP, what he's doing, like you said yourself, if apparently he would have no issue with someone saying like, "Hey, call me they." Apparently, he would have no issue. I disagree from looking at how his quotes happened, but but according to you, he would have no issue. So then, what is then the issue of people of the government then saying that using these words against another person falls under hate speech? Because I don't think, because keep in mind, for these laws to happen, it's not like the police are waiting in your cell phone and ready to jump
yeah,
out at you. Someone's got to press charges.
I think his objection to that is that it won't stop there. I think it's pretty much a slippery slope argument.
Well, the slippery slope argument is largely a fallacy.
Yeah, he may be making a fallacy, but that's what I would say he's doing. It's
And
not that
I
it's not that he's against trans people. I think he could be making the slippery slope fallacy.
yeah, and that's exactly my point. Is like if he's making the slippery slope fallacy, he's using it to justify like what's his point in using it? He is a smart man.
Okay. So there's more than just go attacking trans. Another thing that he could be doing is being overly reactive and panicked about free speech. So it doesn't have to be just he's against trans. It also could be that he's a little bit too paranoid about free speech. That is a logical issue that he could.
I
You'd have to see it. Basically, you would have to see him if he did it in another instance. So if he does this again, like if another issue comes up with free speech, let's say it's involving some other issue, and he reacts the same way, and it's not about trans, then you would have the evidence that you would need to say, perhaps
does
the
that justify then his actions? I don't think it
no,
does.
but it helps you. It doesn't. I'm not trying to justify everything he says. What I'm trying to say is that people are being too simplistic to say that it is for sure that he's anti-trans. It could be that he's paranoid about free speech, and there's a part to where I can sympathize with that. Um,
I'm gonna say right there that is a plausible deniability scenario that everyone can get away with then.
what do you mean?
that's the same language and excuse that I'm gonna make a very hyperbolic scenario, but that's the same sort of excuse that people in 1946 Germany would make. Oh, good old H1 Titler is not concerned about Jewish people. He's concerned about the economy. This is the Southern strategy. Um, it's a very commonly used technique where people will obfuscate the actual issue with another issue. It's also a scarecrow strategy. You set up an argument that's super easy to defend when actually you're defending an argument, or it's not a scarecrow. It's the button something strategy.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
it's
Mont and
like,
Bailey. You talking about the Mont and
yeah, yeah,
Bailey?
yeah.
Yeah, Mont and Bailey. Yeah, I get what you're saying with that. Okay, so here's the rub though. If free speech were in danger, what would be the telltale signs?
When people are against you staying, it's whether or not you're against like government, whether or not you were against the policies that are put forth by your government that are governing your locations. Well, we can also look at what happened with Hitler when he starts putting holds on what people can say in the media. When you start seeing people use things like fake news, when you start seeing them putting censorship in place,
Yeah, so
like,
like that's happening right now though.
do you think asking people to use pronouns
No, I'm saying fake news.
censorship?
You
Huh?
just said fake news. People are doing that. People are doing the fake news thing.
Yeah, but it's not that's not being done by freaking by that's not being done by people on the left.
Doesn't
That was
matter.
trumpeted
That's
by that was
it
but it
doesn't
does
matter.
matter. It does
No.
matter.
Okay,
Yes,
so like okay, so
it
wait a minute.
does.
So you have like let's say you have a country of like 300 million people per se, and then 50% of them, that's 150 million, say that gays should be executed. Would you say that that country is homophobic, or would you be like, ah, only 50% of them?
I'd say that they're homophobic, but that's a separate issue.
But what I'm saying is that 50%, like basically you got 50% supporting Trump. So basically whatever you're saying about like whatever you can say about the bad, whatever you can say bad about the right is bad about America because it's too many people to not give it to America. Like you're separating the two as if like if if Islamic country said that death to America and only 50% of them voted for that, it's like you would still say like these are our enemies. You wouldn't separate them like only half. Like after it gets to a certain point, 150 million people believe something. It's like that's the country. Um,
Yeah, you've conflated a lot of issues here. You've the issues of they them and using proper pronouns and PC culture is being touted by the side that is in opposition to fake news, the side that is utilizing the most fake news, to be honest, as well. Trump is claiming fake news and using what was claiming fake news and was using a lot of it. He said the media was lying about him, which is the same stuff that hit that Nazi Germany boy did. He claimed Lugenpress or lying press. It was a word he made. Like, you're conflating now an issue of saying, oh, like we're entering into authoritarianism because the PC guys, but meanwhile it's the right wing guys, the guys who are anti the PC shit.
the left or right is utterly superfluous to this debate. I think it doesn't matter because if it's the left or if it's the right, it's America. It doesn't. So if you can blame the other half of America, it's still America though. So like your sticking point is like yeah, but it's the right, and I'm like okay, so it's America still. America is becoming is threatening free speech.
And what I'm saying is, but that's not the argument we're having. That is a separate argument. The argument is using proper pronouns authoritarian. And what I'm saying is, if the side that is advocating for it is not the side that is showing the telltale signs of of authoritarianism and fascism, I'm probably going to say it's not them.
No, it definitely. Okay, so this is the problem is that you. So this is, I guess, to my point, is that there's half of them that support Trump and the other half are support the left. But are there any people who did not support Trump who also believe like him on this particular issue? So in other words, are there any people on the left who are contaminated by the anti-pronoun shit. And I'm like, if you don't think there are any in there, then you're
There
obviously
are
for.
definitely civilians, but there are more than likely
But then
not.
but
But
then
not
the
all.
group but so then the group is like 50% of Americans and perhaps 20% of the other 50%. So then it becomes 70% of the Americans. So like basically the left is not purely 100% in for the pronouns, right? Not like if you think that they're divided exactly like that, that's ridiculous.
They're not
Not
homogenized.
homogeneous.
Yeah, not homogenized,
So if the
obviously, but
right
that's not
but if the
that's
right
not the
is
narrative.
homogeneously tyrannical and trying to oppress free speech, and some of the left is also against the pronouns, then it's a majority of Americans that are basically for oppression. So in other words, I'm saying you can give
Wait,
credit to
but your argument can be exactly flipped on its head and say that all right wing people are also support the pronoun thing.
all of
You're
them support the pronoun. What do you
No,
mean?
no, no, that some of them do, because you were about to say that that the majority of Americans don't support pronouns. But
Oh
your
well,
argument can be flipped.
yes. If you allow for them to not be homogeneous, so that way that so then you cannot say that the telltale signs are all from the right. It's from the people who are on both sides who are for fake news, who are saying fake news. Because if you're saying it's all for the right, and then you're saying they are homogenous. But if the fake news people are on both sides, then they're not homogenous. So I don't know which one you want to say.
I have no idea what you're arguing for. Because what?
What I'm saying, what I'm arguing for is this: is that whoever is our president, they represent America. Now you might not like it. You might be like, oh no, I don't like this dude. I don't feel like he represents me. It doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. He does represent you, no matter who he is,
Actually, he
because
doesn't, because I'm Canadian.
oh yeah, not you, not you. Yes, yes, not you. But whoever is our president, unless he actually did not legitimately win, you don't even have an argument. Like it doesn't matter if like you're really against him or you didn't see it
That to
coming or
m- that
what?
to me sounds like authoritarianism.
What do you mean?
You just said that he has to represent you and that you
Yeah.
can't disagree.
No, no, no. I'm
You
not
are
saying you
putting
can't do no, I'm not saying you can't disagree, but you can't because this is the thing that's funny is that you have this idea of like this communal type of aspect that we should all like kind of we can all raise the children together type of thing and that we should help out the less privileged and
Mhm.
shit like that, so you're very like family kind of communal thing. And I'm saying that what the left sometimes does is give up their their communal like spirit when something doesn't happen for them politically. And it's like, no, these are still your people. Even Biden, when he got on the speech, like, you know what? Times of division are over. We need to like embrace, and you should acknowledge that each person, like the right needs to acknowledge that Biden is their president and the left needs to acknowledge that Trump is their president. This division to me is like, okay, so none of you are really communal. And if you guys aren't communal, it's like, it's no one else views it differently. Like if you're not American, like if you're like an enemy of America, you're not gonna be like, oh, Trump didn't count as a representation of America because there were liberals who didn't vote for him. You'd be like, no, he
Mhm.
definitely represents America.
But you what you are arguing for right here is that America as a whole in general is moving towards authoritarianism, which I can agree with. But what I was arguing was is forcing people to have respect for one another, to use the proper pronouns, moving towards authoritarianism.
Okay. So I will grant you that. I'll say we don't need to look at that. That's not an example of authoritarianism, right? But you agree that America as a whole is moving towards authoritarianism. How what
Due to
due to the right,
populism. Yeah.
due to populism and the right, right? So how do
Mhm.
we know when the left gets the right's cooties of authoritarianism? Or will it ever? Could it be acknowledged that it ever happens, or the like?
It could obviously happen, but this issue of pronouns is not it.
Okay, that I
Yeah.
guess yeah, I guess I'm willing to see that, but I do feel like to say this is what I see the left doing. They go like, well, you don't need to be conservatives here, 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 here. None of these are examples of how we are bad. And then also I see the right saying, you don't need to be concerned with us here, 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 here. All the problems are over there, right? And so each side thinks that the other side is irredeemably bad, and their side is um, untaintably, or that you can't bring any judgment upon them good, like that they're like perfectly pure, and they're both doing that. And I'm like, so how do I know? Like, I simply just sign up for a side and then I'm good. And I'm like, that cannot possibly be right. It cannot
I
possibly.
don't I don't here's what I will say. First of all, anyone that is seriously looking at these, as a Canadian, I can safely say that you guys got a long way to go before your progressive left becomes authoritarian. You guys got a long way to go on that scale before you get there. Canada, like, is here. Trump was here. Biden's here. This is the center. Y'all got a long way to go. The levels of like you got to look then at what authoritarianism has looked like traditionally with more left-leaning countries. It's about looking at history. Look at Russia with Stalin and all that and potentially Putin. Go to the history. Look at those countries. Putin's on a different situation now though, but like it's there in the history books. That's how you can tell. But a movement towards a certain direction is not indicative of authoritarianism. However, with how America has progressed politically over the past few after the past century, it has been a steady, progressive movement to the right, to the point where you get people like Trump who are authoritarian and are showcasing some more fascist elements. Like that is how you can tell. Is you look at the history and you compare and contrast and you start looking at the talking points that are being thrown around. You start looking at the right wing's use of language, you start looking at the left wing's use of language, and you start seeing like how are these people hurting, or how are like where are we going? And if you look at the right wing's use of language, large in part they're using language that is very familiar to those that have studied 1940s Germany. You see people using words like the lying press. You got to start then looking at the aggregates of people's ideologies. You start seeing that anti-Semitism is on the rise in the right. You start seeing that racism is on the rise in the right. You start seeing that all of these ideologies are cropping up, and you start going like, I don't know, they're starting to seem very familiar to me. You
Yeah.
know,
I think,
but and then the left, you look at them and you go, okay, what are they advocating for? Are they advocating for Bolsheviks yet? No. Are they advocating for are they advocating for a total government control over the economy yet? No. They're advocating for more taxes for the rich. That's not economic control. They're
yeah,
advocating for universal health care. Once again, we can look at every other country that has that and we can go, well, that's not totalitarian.
yeah, I
The
think,
history shows it.
okay, so here's the thing that I think about that is that you're saying the left isn't doing that, but then you said like the Democrats in America are more centrist.
Yeah,
And so really in America and the left, you do see them doing that because they're the ones who are a little bit more on the good old boy side in America. Like Bernie Sanders wouldn't be there, but perhaps something like Joe Biden or more establishment Democrats would be more of that.
potentially. But once again, I'm not. On that case, I'm not versed enough to speak on those issues, and I don't think you are either. I think we need a proper political professional in order to discuss on that. Because when it comes to Joe Biden, he's more central
Right.
in that case.
But
Like
central, but but Bernie would be more left than him, right?
potentially, but he's still not as left as Canada.
Right. Um, and then what
Trudeau,
the
for
Andrew
reference,
Yang?
huh?
Andrew Yang.
Not too familiar about his
Oh,
policy.
okay. Because that's one of the guys I like who is leftist.
Andrew Yang is interesting. I've seen a little bit about him. I'm curious about it. I'm curious about what he's going to do moving forward. I'll look at his career with great interest.
No, no,
But
I like.
but when it comes to the current political parties, like even with Joe Biden as the current leader of the Democrats, you also got to look at the at what the Democrat Party was trying to do. They were trying to overthrow Donald Trump. They were looking for someone who could beat. They got two egregiously ancient men together in a room and were like, "Which old man do you like more?" It's not like they were. It's not like the Democrats knew that another 4 years of Trump would spell disaster for America, especially considering what happened on the 6th of January. Uh, so like got to look at that situation as well. What are they trying to do? And then you can look at the party and see like who's coming up. You've got AOC, you've got Andrew Yang. You can clearly tell that the party is trying to progress further to the left.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like so when it comes to the arguments of like America authoritarian, like including the Democrats in that discussion is like it's like they're being dragged along in the train. They have to come along because that's America. But who's driving the train? Who's in the front seat pulling the pedals? Like that's something that I think needs to be considered when looking at these things that people bring forward with. And when we go back to the argument that started all of this, Jordan Peterson and trans people, he's arguing that this proposal made by people on the left wing who are just trying to get people to treat others with common decency and ensure that there is no room for hate speech in our common language. He's saying that is authoritarian.
yeah. I,
That to,
I
that to me rings of someone who
have
has missed the mark.
two things. Okay, have you heard of the Lindsay Shepherd affair?
No,
Lindsay
I have not.
Shepherd.
Lindsay Shepherd. Who are you? Lindsay. A fair?
Lindsay Shepherd, this Canadian columnist, because this is
Hmm.
connected to what you're talking about
What did she
with Jordan.
say?
She's connected with Jordan Peterson and the Bill C-16 about gender identity.
Okay.
So like this is because part of what you're against, I get how you're logically against it, but then this instance would be one of the things that will more radicalize Jordan Peterson. It's a person that he knew.
Uh, okay.
Because I actually heard the tape. Like I heard the tape of what happened with her, and it was completely over the top. Like it did sound authoritarian, and she recorded it without them knowing. So like that's one of the things that made me think of it more because they pulled her aside for something that she showed in class to me that was I forgot what she showed, but something on a something on a documentary or some type of thing show, and people were mad and they reported her, and they did a complete like kangaroo court and they blitzed her, and I think this is the one. This is what kind of pushed Jordan Peterson to make that position.
So,
Oh yeah, and then after they released the recording, there was
what happened?
yeah. If you go to the
So,
Lindsay Shepherd, you go down. There's a recording release, apologies, and the university, the lawsuits and everything. I'm just a little bit long.
students in class. What
Let's
are
do
you
it.
using since have used the discussion as an excuse to make fun of trans identities? Consider approach them with an expression of concern about the clip's representatives.
Yeah, there we go. Like in a meeting.
I think when I look at this, I'm like, why do we need a platform ideologies that are against people's lives?
What are you talking? Which?
There, well, like it looks like what happened here is like people record like she was showcasing recordings of people who were against trans identities. Um, while trans people were in the room, like that like that's not okay. I can understand. I guess I can like to me like is it wrong that she was recorded without her knowing? Yeah, probably. But like that's not the issue here. She was showcasing that she was platforming ideas that were harmful to these individuals. You know, it was creating a harmful environment for them. Like she's platforming that like people shouldn't be able to identify the way they want to. Like and should they should she like is that like and she then instructed them that they should be taking a neutral stance on all this when they themselves are trans and when trans people have existed for longer than modern society. Is that right? I don't think so.
Um. So, like, are you arguing from the response that the students had that this was a bad thing, or by the content itself?
I'm looking at the responses from these individuals.
Yeah.
Clearly there was a lawyer involved and they did an investigation. As well as the
Yeah, it says right here the report, which at the university inquiry says a report which the university did not release found that Shepard had not violated any university policies, that the meeting had involved a significant overreach. Like that was the like it's right in the university inquiry on the Wikipedia page. It says it.
well, there you go, and that's fine.
But that's like that's what is making him think that type of shit. Because he's if he sees that and this is like in his hometown, he was like, this is an example of what, and perhaps he's poisoned the well what he is expecting to see. But at the same time, this type of thing,
Well, then it was handled accordingly. They investigated it and it was done with. But all the same, like I think this individual probably could have done with some more tact with how they showcased this stuff as well.
yeah. But what I'm saying is that Jordan Peterson is he thinks that this is so like it came out good, right? It came out like where they looked at everything and they came to the right decision in this instance, right? I don't think that Jordan Peterson's experience is that this has always been the case. So, like in this instance, this shows that he was vindicated. But if he has other instances where they didn't agree, right, then he would probably feel like this isn't always adjudicated in the perfect sense.
I mean, I can also point at the times when he was going to hold a rally and then which invited and platformed a bunch of people who were actively transphobic, and there were cases of hate crimes that happened in the city of Toronto because he was going to speak there. You know, like it's granted, like I'm sure, like he may think that his ideas are harmless or whatever, but it's shown that platforming those ideologies and platforming those people creates environments of hatred. You know, like I don't think it's that difficult to be tactful with this stuff. Like I don't think it's that hard to just treat people with common decency. I don't think anyone's going to be hurt, and I don't think society as a whole is going to struggle if if people are given spaces to feel safe, because everyone's in a safe space at some point. That's the entire point of houses. We
Right.
built them to make safe spaces. If people don't like, what's the importance of not feeling safe? Challenging yourself, certainly, and we have spaces for that. But a university should be a place where you're focused on learning, not survival, right? Like
Yeah.
I like I I only vaguely get the sentiment of your argument. I don't get the logistics of it and the follow through.
What do you mean?
Like you're like, oh, what happens if it like he feels like it could overstep at some point, and I'm like, well, anything can get extreme, but that's not gonna happen.
Wait. How do you? Oh yeah, I grant you
What's
anything.
the extreme? What's the extreme example? What's gonna happen? What's the most extreme situation?
What do you mean? What's the most extreme?
What's the like the simple way to see if it's gonna happen is we do a thought experiment. Like
I thought
what's
here of how this type
like
of thing.
how can this go too far? It didn't this time. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, like what would have happened if it didn't go that way?
No, like we can just go like what's the most extreme? What's Jordan Peterson's greatest fear?
The Gulag Archipelago.
The what?
Gulag Archipelago. He believes that like that was an example of the destruction of the society there uh, from a leftist regime in Russia, the Gulag Archipelago. So like he believes that that type of thing can happen. He wrote the foreword of the recent one, so that like that will give you an idea of what his nightmare is exactly the Gulag Archipelago um, happening in that was by Solzhenitsyn, author. So that story happening in America, and some of it does sound pretty scary if you read it. There's parts of it that do ring true, like that are happening in America.
And we're gonna get here by using they in a way that was already commonly used linguistically.
No, I don't. Here's the thing. This is the part that I think mythologically and spiritually this has to be done. Whenever you feel with conviction that you are on the right side of something and you're being pushed, you do have to stand up for it. It doesn't matter whether he's right or not. Because what people do, I agree with this super strongly, is what people do who say that they will be heroic and stand up for the right thing. What they do is they'll tell themselves tomorrow, 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 and then eventually they don't get the practice of standing up for themselves. And when the time comes, they lay down. And so I do think that you have to make a practice of standing up for what you actually do believe in when it could land you in trouble.
And all right,
So
so
you're saying this wasn't the time to do it, which of course he's not error free. I don't think that you every time you stand up for yourself or when you don't that those are the right times.
yeah, I'm not without flaw, but I do have a presence of mind to eventually learn about my stances. I change my opinions all the time.
Right.
Like I'm very much aware. This just comes from the fact this is comes from about our earlier discussion of privilege. I'm a very privileged individual. I've not encountered as much as a lot of others, and as a result, I've had to learn. I've had to learn about others' experience and be more empathetic. Um, and from doing so, what I can safely say is that there are times when you must throw down your sword and give up on certain issues. But Jordan Peterson has taken this they them issue as a sword to die on, which is, in my opinion, even as a linguist, ridiculous considering we use they them singular all the time. But he just can't do it for some reason. Or he's unwilling to, or at least claims he would be unwilling to, but then he'll change his stance, essentially. Lessons. I've been given
Oh,
tea.
your girl gave you some tea?
That was my bro.
Oh, your bro.
Yeah, we live together, so. But I think linguistically, like it doesn't make sense. Empathetically, it doesn't make sense. And I think empathy is a very human trait which is required for a decent society. Um, it just doesn't make sense on so many levels that his fear of the Gulag Archipelago happening, starting with they them, I think is unsubstantiated at best.
I get where you're coming from that you don't see it, but I think the good rejoinder for you, the good challenge is so what is your Gulag archipelago, and is it possible that it comes from the left? So like, do you see a nightmare situation where it comes from the left? Because I think the person who has real perspective can see it coming from both sides. If you can only see it coming from one side, then that's half of the population.
I'm not saying that it can't happen. I would never say that something can't happen. But what I am saying is that currently this is not our near future. Whereas if I look to the right, I saw Nazi Germany 2 months ago. Like,
With the wait, January 6th you talking about? No.
yes, I'm talking about, well, January 6th. I'm talking about November. I saw huge issues coming. Like, you guys had, like, America had a near insurrection, for Christ's sakes. And Jordan Peterson's fear is the Gulag Archipelago. I'm like, like you say that perspective is looking at from both sides. I say perspective is understanding immediacy.
Oh, I don't think that Jordan Peterson is like the way of the Tao, like he is the Tao itself. Like I don't think that he is like the essence of perspective.
Yeah. But
Uh,
I even like the central position of like, oh, it can come from both sides. I'm saying present like perspective is not about going, oh, it can come from two places. It's about understanding the immediacy. Like if I was a tribal hunter, yes, I can certainly be killed by an elephant. But the immediacy is knowing that there's a tiger in front of me and I should probably take care of that situation first. You know? Like, oh yeah,
yeah,
there might be a tiger 3 miles south. I shouldn't go there. So I'm just going to stay right here where there's a giant lion ready to rip out my throat. Does that sound like logic? No, I don't think so. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. I guess like to me, the indicators that it could come from any side are not so much on whether we're leaning right or left at the either time, is that we lean right or left because we're looking for a group identity. We need a team. So most of the people who are going left or right are like NPCs, like non-playable characters, and it doesn't really matter where they are.
Well,
Um,
you can't get rid of those people.
I know, but I'm saying they could swing any way, right? Um, a good part of it is think about how they were able to swing. The right were able to swing towards Donald Trump and exalt him as the crusader in a holy war. Like Donald Trump is a religious like leader,
Yeah,
like in a holy war. Like that shows that they have no principle by which they are joining themselves with anything. They're like, oh yeah, Donald Trump's religious holy man. And they're like, we're fighting for
yeah.
Jesus through him.
And you know, you do bring up a good point, but I think it's also important to mention that it's not like you guys moved there suddenly. America got there over a very long period of time.
Yeah,
You guys
but,
you
but
guys have
they
been
didn't.
moving
But they didn't
slowly.
see themselves going that way, is what I'm saying. And I think that most people don't see themselves being devoured by anything at any time. So like the Christian think they will never get duped, and the right, and then the left, and like I think most people by and large think that where they are has all the answers and they will never be usurped. And to me, that is the indicator that they all can fall at any time because they're not on guard for how the devil is in their own heart rather than it's always out there or somewhere else.
And you know what? I do believe there might be some truth in that. I do agree that like the unwillingness to change your stance, I think, is a very dangerous idea. And I suffer from this. I'm stubborn as hell. Like I'm very, very stubborn, as you can probably garner from talking to me. But like,
You're not that bad.
yeah,
I've talked to way worse on these things.
yeah, yeah. But what I do think is that is that arguments of like, oh, perspective, and arguments of like, oh, we got to look at things from both sides. I'm like, I think a lot of these arguments get put in this perspective of like, to me, whenever I look at America and even at Canada, right now we're already kind of right wing. It's like you're way closer to this problem than you are to this other one. So why are we tackling moving this way? It to me, it always seems like it's like, oh, watch out, guys! There's a volcano 7 miles north, and I'm like, well, we're in a tiger den currently, so why don't we go north to leave?
Yeah.
You know, like
I
that
think
to
I know
me.
a way. You just gave me a way I can explain what I'm talking about. All right. So
Yeah,
you have, I don't know which way is left and right on your perspective, but this is my left and this is my
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you're saying that like on this thing we're way more over here, like this is the part and we're like here, and I'm like
Hmm.
that's not the problem that I have. The problem is that we're here and I want to be here. So the like if
You
you have
mean
that
okay? So,
the political access
yeah,
is
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm more like that we're here authoritarian than down here libertarian. So like this whole thing about this, I'm like, yeah, I actually am not, I'm not as opposed to the right being us more the right as long as it's down here on the libertarian side. But as you go authoritarian right, that's when I get scared. But authoritarian left is still worse to me too. The
Yeah,
libertarian is
and I think then what you gotta look at is like, is the current Democrats authoritarian left? I wouldn't say so. They are not show. They're not. If they are, they're not very good at it. I'll tell you that
the
much.
SJWs are, I think the SJWs are for sure.
That's a
Um,
fake thing. They're not really. Are they organized? Do they have a
Bro, what they
militia?
did to Brett Weinstein was very authoritarian. They, oh, man, dude, you gotta
Was
see.
that a group canceling? Was that group was that a canceling, or was that legislative?
Um,
Is he in jail?
oh no, 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 he's not in jail.
Okay, that's not authoritarian.
I guess yeah. So there you go. So like right now, it's not legislative. These people will eventually be in positions of power because it's like the younger. It's basically the younger generation in school right now. So perhaps it'll never come to
And
fruition.
the younger generation is in school. They're not out of school.
Yeah,
They will soon learn the nuance.
yeah.
But like, but like it.
The
But
way
but
the stuff I saw there though, like they had the people, the staff there, as prisoners, wouldn't allow them to use the bathroom alone, and they had to escort them to the bathroom. They're like, you cannot use the bathroom alone. They were saying, he's like, oh, you're. They say you're white supremacist. He's like, well, I don't know. He's like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, well, I mean that's what they say. So, and he's like, you don't know that you're white supremacist? He's like, I mean, I don't want to discount their feelings. It's like, what the hell is this? Like legit. Like I'm gonna post the video and you'll see.
look, if you're looking at those people, okay, look, there's dumbasses, there's stupid, there's idiots on all sides of this. There's always going to be an idiot. There's an idiot waiting for you everywhere. Around every corner, you can find an idiot. But are those people ever going to get to the situations in which they can implement an authoritarian regime?
I don't know. I honestly
No,
don't know,
Guaran-
but
guaranteed no. If that like guarantee it, guarantee that those specific individuals. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying that those individuals can't do it.
you. This is. I guess this is philosophically. I want to say this, and my girl's waiting for me, so I want to go. I want to let you respond to this though. So I guess the reason why I do fear the left being authoritarian is because with the kind of destruction of the church, there's been an ever-growing religious fervor among the left, to where they're like they're creating their own religion, and it's a religion without a religion. So they're missing some of the aspects that they got from Christianity, but they're reemerging outside of the container. And for me to see that, the only way it's going to populate is through authoritarianism. So the authoritarian left is basically the religious left, and not the traditionally religious left, but this new religious left.
I I don't think they're as organized as religion. I don't think they're organized enough. Religion is useful for organizing people because they all have a collective idea. But the issue with these groups of people that you're speaking of, they're very divided. Like they're much more they're not homogenized. We talked about that earlier. You brought it up. They're not nearly as homogenized as they would need to be in order to create a religion. That's the
Sure.
usefulness of religion, is it homogenizes identity and ideology and gets you all working together. That's one of the things that I think is very useful about religion.
I,
But when it comes to the SJWs, as you call them, they're not homogenized enough.
I think
Most
I think that
most
they're not homogenized in their ideas, but they are homogenized in a rite of passage. So the LGBTQ community and many people who associate themselves with allies have a rite of passage. And the rite of passage is the coming of age or coming out story, right? To the point where people are coming out and they don't even say what they came out as. It's like, oh, I'm coming out. I forgot who it was. They like didn't even say what I'm coming out. And they said, what I'm coming out as is private. I don't want to reveal it. So the rite of passage itself is just coming out.
I consider myself an SJW. I'm straight as a bean.
Yeah, but you
I
could
don't
come
think
out as straight. That's what I'm saying. Like the religious substrate is that you. Oh,
I don't no one will take me seriously if I do that, and they shouldn't because that's fucking stupid.
yeah.
I don't think that group. I think that's a vocal minority. I think that's a vocal minority giving people bad names. I think what we can do as people on the internet. This is something that we can do that I think we can both agree on. Is we need to start is that the internet needs to realize that everyone's radicalized, and that what we need to do, and we need to start figuring out ways to de-radicalize each other.
Mhm.
I think that's something as content creators we need to look at.
And you don't think we could do that?
I don't think getting people that you disagree with to come and talk is the way. I think there's something different. I think we need to find we need like I don't know if that's the method of de-radicalization. We need to I need to read more on how to do that,
Okay.
on how it's been done in the past, to have a genuine opinion. But from what I've read about people who have suggested shows like you suggest in the past, they've generally regretted their choices.
Hmm.
You know, they've
Oh, I'll read up more on it and see what
see what you can find. Look up Joe Rogan's excerpts on his stuff as well. Yeah.
Joe Rogan. What do I look Joe Rogan on? Like having combative guests or something like that.
It's the Joe Rogan podcast. It's
Yeah,
his whole thing. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
but where he talks about like regretting.
I can't remember the interview,
Okay.
but look into that. Look at what people say. Look at what experts suggest as well about de-radicalization. Because if you care about de-radicalization, I'm a comedian. My main thing's being funny. I'm a bad source for this stuff. I'll say that straight up. But what I do think, if you care about this stuff, I'd suggest looking into how experts suggest de-radicalization through content, because um, YouTube, TikTok, no matter what, these algorithms are optimized to radicalize. No matter what your ideology is,
Yeah,
because that's how you get watch time up. People watch me for Dungeons and Dragons. So maybe one thing about me leads them to other tabletop games and leads them more into board games and so on and so forth, right?
yeah,
But that works for political ideologies, which is how we get shit like the alt-right pipeline, and a whole bunch of other business, right?
yeah,
So it's important that we look at that stuff. I think that is something that is, if you care about de-radicalization of the internet and of people as a whole, which I think you do, and I think is good. I think that, and I think that's something that you can look towards is like how do you make and something that you can theorize. And I'd be happy to help you in making good content because that's something I know how to do. I know how to
okay.
make content. I
Well,
don't know how to.
that would
Yeah,
be awesome if you freaking you'd be like one of my first YouTube buddies because I just created a YouTube to like kind of once I got the TikTok following. My following
uh,
isn't big as yours, but
yeah,
it's hard.
yeah. Well, I would. TikTok is hard, and I'd suggest just don't take Jordan Peterson's opinions for granted. You know, don't take anyone's opinions for granted. Everyone's got their own agendas. Even I do. Like
Yeah, I don't think there.
so.
I'm telling. I listen to him for different things, and I put him against other people.
That's fair.
Yeah,
All the same, I do think you probably need to get going. I need to get going
yeah.
too.
My girl's like, "Come on, I want to hang out with you."
Okay.
She wants to hang
Well,
out with me, and have some
I'll
time
let you get to her then. Bye,
together.
buddy.
Yeah, but I want to say thank you for coming on and doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
No
Um,
problem.
yeah, I'll reach out and we'll stay in touch. Really, thank you for that, and glad we could have this conversation.
No
Uh,
problem.
you're a good dude.
You
You
too. You too, buddy. Good night.
take a good night.
Yeah.